Om Jnanatimivandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Gadamhayam Dharati Shapadantikam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sanyavari Paschatya Dasatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I'm happy to announce that I can see your comments now. I updated to the latest operating system, Mac operating system, and maybe that's coincidental, but now everything's working. So if you comment or you ask a question, then I can see it. Hare Krishna. So we have been, on Monday mornings we've been talking about the topic of dissatisfaction also. Of course that means the topic of satisfaction, and we originally chose this idea because we've conceptualized a book and a workshop on happiness, and so we wanted to discuss it just to help us in that process, of course, also help us as well individually. And what I did was I did a search, not maybe a thorough search, but a search through Prabhupada's books, and I searched the word dissatisfied. And we've been reading and discussing what Prabhupada has said in these quotes. Of course, a lot of these quotes are just purports. We don't have the verses. But in any case, we kind of get a general idea of the concept of dissatisfaction, where it comes from, because there are similarities in all the verses. But then if you're interested, you can also search on Vedabase. If you don't have Vedabase, it's all of Prabhupada's books. You should get it. You can get it on your phone, get it on your computer, and you search the word satisfaction. And either way, what you generally find is that, the general concept you find is that the only thing that can satisfy us is love, and the only kind of love that can satisfy us is love of Krishna. And anything less than that causes some degree of dissatisfaction, and whatever satisfaction we get from anything else, it will always leave, because we lack love of Krishna, it will always leave some emptiness. It's a basic idea. And the problem is that we can understand with our minds, but actually understanding with the heart is something else. And we could say that Prabhupada is trying in so many ways to convince us here in our head that we should detach ourselves from material life so that we can focus on our spiritual life. But here, the heart doesn't always get what the head gets. So I was thinking before class of an analogy that when a child is born, people look at the child and they think, oh, the child's so innocent, so pure. And there's some truth to that, but we also know they're not that pure, because that child has had many lifetimes of impurity. But for the sake of the example, you can see the child is pure, and as the child grows, then they become socialized, and you could say they lose, to one degree or another, they lose their purity. So we, as conditioned souls, at one time were pure. We come into this world for many lifetimes, so we're like that child, that innocent child who's not really that innocent, who's been conditioned for many, many lifetimes. And the conditioning is such that when we hear something with our head, we don't necessarily feel it. It's like the head says, okay, I understand that. But what is my perception? What is my consciousness? If my consciousness hasn't changed, then what I've heard, it's like, it's knowledge which I could utilize, which I could understand and apply. But oftentimes that's all it is. It's just, okay, that's information. Now I could act on this information, or the information is there, kind of like a bank account. You know, you have savings. So a lot of times when we hear, it's like it goes into our savings account. We're not acting on it. We're not feeling it. We're not realizing it. But we're aware of it. Almost like a frozen bank account. Like I can't access it. That's because of conditioning. So we can understand that if we don't love Krishna, the heart's it's always going to be hankering for something, to try to replace Krishna with that something. And you can't, obviously, replace Krishna with anything other than Krishna, or other than something in relation to Krishna. Tadyanam, something in relation to Krishna. And every time we try to replace it with something other than Krishna, it doesn't work. And we've been doing that since time immemorial, and it still doesn't work, and we're still doing it because the conditioning is so strong that even though we understand that only love of Krishna will satisfy me, we have so much passion and so much desire to do so many things. Okay, so what do you do in that situation when you understand something, but it's not your level of consciousness, it's not your experience? Like if I say, this is not beautiful, and this will entangle you in the material world, and this will cause you suffering. But your experience is, it is beautiful, it will make me happy, and it will actually, I feel like it'll alleviate my suffering. How do you deal with that? Well, the process of Krishna consciousness will cause detachment, and it's only detachment that's going to give us some clarity, and also Krishna consciousness will give us some taste, some ruchi, and it's only with that ruchi can we understand that won't make me happy. Because sometimes if you don't have the ruchi, then you can say, okay, I can understand it won't make me happy, but you don't have experience of that. And so it doesn't mean a whole lot. It's like, let's say, I'm your parent and I want to get you married, and I introduce you to a potential spouse. And I say, this is the right person for you, and this person will make you happy. And I list all the reasons why I think it's a good marriage. But you, when you look at the person, you don't feel anything. You're not really attracted. There's no, as we say, chemistry. It's like, eh. So even though I'm saying all these good things about this person and how I think it's going to work, and you could acknowledge it, you could say, it seems like what you're saying is right, we seem similar, and etc., same background and so forth, but still you don't feel anything. So knowing that this is the right person and feeling it, it's different. So that's the problem we're dealing with. I know from experience, and I know from knowledge that only loving Krishna will make me happy, but my conditioning wants to enjoy separately from Krishna. And so our philosophy teaches us that if we try to enjoy separately from Krishna, the only possible way we can do that is to regulate that enjoyment and connect it with Krishna. If you try to do it any other way, it's not going to work. And you're just going to suffer in one way or another. And so the question then becomes, well, how many times do we have to suffer? Or how much suffering do we have to go through before we understand, get this into our head and into our heart, that this doesn't work? That's the big question we have to ask ourselves, because at least a partial answer to that question is, you could say, we're going to go through as much suffering as we need to go through until we get it in our head. Now, if you want to avoid suffering, get it in your head and heart earlier, sooner than later. But at least we should know that to advance in Krishna consciousness, we're going to have to understand that our relation with Krishna and our service to Krishna is the only thing that's going to give us any deep, long-lasting satisfaction. And any other material needs that we have that we need to fulfill to satisfy our emotional or physical needs have to be done in a way that doesn't interfere with our Krishna consciousness, but in some way supports it, some way nourishes it, at least doesn't interfere. And if we don't understand that, then we're going to engage in material activities. And the frustration with material activities is what brought us to Krishna consciousness. So it's like it hasn't changed. It's like, the way Maya is. It's like you do something, it doesn't work. And Maya says, well, why don't you try it again today? Because maybe today it'll be different. And you think, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Let's try it again. Maybe today it's different. Maybe the weather was bad yesterday. And, all right, it didn't work with this. I moved from this house to that house to that house to that house. That didn't work. And from this wife or husband to this wife or husband to this, well, that didn't work. And from this job to that job. Well, maybe I just need to try it again. I didn't do it in the right way. So that's what we're dealing with. And the reason we're dealing with that is because the desire to enjoy independent of Krishna is so strong, it's so intense, it just holds on to us. Even when we know that it's not going to make us happy, even when we know it's detrimental to our spiritual life, it just grabs onto us. And it pollutes our intelligence. And that polluted intelligence is called ahankara, and ahankara makes us think, I can enjoy. And that thinking that I can enjoy is actually imitation of Krishna, because Krishna is Param Purusha. He's the supreme enjoyer. And thinking that I can occupy the position of Krishna is the height of insanity. And that's why Prabhupada said everyone in the material world is crazy. Because material life means we're imitating Krishna. You actually think you can imitate Krishna? That's insanity. We can't imitate Krishna. And even Balaram tried to be Krishna, and he couldn't deal with it. There's too many demons to kill. You want to imitate Krishna? Okay. All the demons will come and try to kill you. You want to imitate Krishna, I can hardly maintain one wife. What about 16,000? We can't do it. We wouldn't. It's like stupid to think that we can imitate Krishna, but because we're also Purusha, we have this little God tendency within us, then we try to be like him, and it just doesn't work. It never has worked for anybody, and it's never going to work for anybody. So what we're trying to come to is a realization that the only thing that works is devotional service, and that's our nature, and that's the only way we can fulfill that nature and be satisfied in that nature. And until full realization blossoms, or enough ruchi awakens within us that we don't have to battle with this conditioning that's telling us, you can still be happy without Krishna. You just try it one more time. I know it didn't work the last 7 zillion, 8 billion, quadrillion, million times, but maybe you could just do it once more. It'll probably work this time. Don't give up, Isn't it like that? So we're supposed to come to that understanding at some point. And until we come to that understanding, all we can really do is tolerate the urges of the senses, knowing that Krishna consciousness will purify me of my material tendencies and awaken my tendency to love Krishna. So that's what Krishna consciousness does. But there has to be a degree of sense control and a degree of detachment so that the process will work. And as the process works and we awaken our Krishna consciousness, then the material world and material life becomes less and less attractive. It becomes more, we use the word tasteless. Charavita charvananam. It tastes like gum that's already been chewed. So it's a sign that you're advancing. If we look at the material world and we say, If we look at the material world and we say, oh, there's no happiness here, everything's bad, that is true. And if we look at it and we see it that way, that's good. But sometimes we see it that way because we're simply frustrated in trying to enjoy sense gratification. And so our renunciation is a result of frustration, which is not grounded in attraction to Krishna, which is the real way to become renounced. So we don't want renunciation just out of frustration, although there's some element of that in the beginning because it helps us. So, oh, the material world is bad. Yes, if you go around saying the material world is bad, but you don't have a taste for Krishna consciousness, that's not going to work. I mean, it might help you a little bit, and a lot of devotees will try to see the material world as bad because they actually don't see it, but they'll try to remind themselves that it's bad. Now, that helps, but it's not the ultimate process. It's a reminder, okay, I have this enjoying propensity, but let me read the newspaper and look at all the tragedies, and that will keep me on focus. Okay, well that's there. That's gyan. Bhakti mixed with gyan, awareness of the suffering. Today, I don't know if you heard, in Las Vegas there was a concert, and some madmen shot 100 people and killed 20 of them. So that's an impetus to be Krishna conscious, at least to keep us on the path. But the real impetus comes from taste. The real thing that keeps us going is taste. And the taste can only come through advancement, which only comes through proper hearing and chanting and service. So ultimately, it's just we can't sustain ourselves just by looking at how bad the world is. The other problem is, if we look at how bad the world is, and we have a very strong desire to enjoy the world, that desire to enjoy will manifest. Yeah, the world is bad, but I found a little spot where it's not so bad. It's called Hawaii. Washington D.C. it's bad. It's cold in the winter, immense traffic, and just this vibe of politics. But Hawaii, I found my spot. So that's the problem. If it's just renunciation based on frustration and not renunciation based on some higher taste, then even though you're saying, oh, the world's bad, everyone's bad, everything's this, everything's that, I hate it, but then one day you find something in the material world, you go, hey, but that looks good. I don't know if you've seen that before, but they're devotees. They're devotees in that situation. I've seen where you think they're very renounced and they're always describing how much they don't like the material world, and then one day they're off and fully engaged in material activities, and you're wondering, how did that happen? Because it wasn't a mature renunciation. It was a renunciation based on frustration, based on misery. But there's not always misery and frustration in our life. So then how are you renounced when there's no misery and frustration? Sometimes the weather's nice, things are nice, everything's going well. You know those days where everything's just kind of it just all works out? And then you might think, hey, it's not so bad here, everything's working out well. I just won the lottery. Life is good. So a devotee who has taste, he could win the lottery, but it's not like, okay, my life has dramatically changed. It's not like that. He remains detached because of his taste. So that's the basic idea, yes. So we're going to read some things that Prabhupada has said about dissatisfaction, and then we'll discuss them. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 4th chapter, text 17, and this is in relation to Hiranyakashipu. This is an example of asuric life. This means Hiranyakashipu and his people like him. Atheists can advance materially and create an extremely comfortable situation for the senses. but because they are controlled by the senses, they cannot be satisfied. This is the effort of modern civilization. Materialists are very much advanced in enjoying money and women. Yet dissatisfaction prevails within human society, because human society cannot be happy and peaceful without Krishna consciousness. As far as material sense gratification is concerned, materialists may go on increasing their enjoyment as far as they can imagine. But because people in such a material condition are servants of their senses, they cannot be satisfied. Hiranyakashipu was a vivid example of this dissatisfied state of humanity. So, Mabai says, forced renunciation leads to fanaticism. Yeah. And after fanaticism, a lot of fanatics, they give up Krishna consciousness. You go from one fanatical side to the other. Fanatically Krishna conscious, fanatically not Krishna conscious. We'll discuss this because this comment was just made. Sometimes someone becomes fanatic about Krishna conscious. And if that person who becomes fanatic about Krishna conscious has a fanatical nature to them, they can easily become fanatical about Maya again and fanatically give up Krishna consciousness. So, that's the nature of fanatic consciousness. It's like all or nothing. So it's all Krishna consciousness, nothing else. And then maybe at some point it'll be all Maya and no Krishna consciousness. That's possible. So let's examine what Prabhupada is saying. The first point he makes is that materialists are able to create an extremely comfortable situation for their senses. Prabhupada saw that in coming to America. America was unlike India. India, when Prabhupada came in 1965, India was third world. I don't even think it was second. It was like, potholes everywhere on the road. To make a phone call overseas was a major endeavor. Nobody had cars, only the wealthy people. Things were like, in 1975 in India, it was like on the standard of America in 1935. It wasn't, and even today, you take a train, it's, just the local trains, even the second class trains, not that comfortable. But gradually, so Prabhupada came to the West and he saw it's so different here, the roads and this and the beautiful homes. And so Prabhupada's making the point based on his own experience, because he saw how in America everything is, or in the Western countries, everything's comfortable. Big highways, nice cars, comfortable chairs, comfortable this, comfortable. We have super comfortable shoes. We have super comfortable chairs. We have super comfortable cars. We have super comfortable beds. We have big TV screens, in comfortable sofas to sit in, with beautiful sound systems, with central heating and air conditioning, which you could control from your iPhone. You could actually cook also from your iPhone. You don't really have to do much. You can just control the world with your fingers. So that's the point Prabhupada's making. Especially if you look at life now compared to times in the past, because of technological advancements, people's lives are actually easier, even though we might say we're working hard and there's a lot of stress, and but I think objectively speaking, we have running water, we don't have to go to wells, we have electricity, we just flip a switch, these kinds of things. It's much easier than how people used to live. So if you live in a Western country, even now more and more, it's becoming more this way in India, your life is pretty comfortable. If it's too hot, you put on the AC. It's too cold, you put on the heat. It's too this, you do that, right? It's pretty comfortable. So what does Prabhupada say? But because they are controlled by the senses, they cannot be satisfied. And so, what's Prabhupada's point? Unless you control your senses, you won't be satisfied. Because why? Your senses can't be satisfied. somebody was telling me, you know that in the future you won't have to drive a car, trucks won't be driven by people, they'll be computerized, all our cars will be computerized. The mail, the mail is going to be delivered by drones, so some guy's sitting at a computer and he's dropping mail. I was just going to, thinking, wow, and you could just kind of imagine the technology in 10, 20 years, what our phones are going to do, or if we even have phones, or whatever we have, I envision apps which are like, get you off the ground and you can fly, Hey, I have to go to my friend's house a mile away, hit an app. You can just see where it's going. It's like every inconceivable convenience and trick, and it's just, I just got an upgrade to my iPad and I was turning this on to give class, and I was thinking, now you can do this and that with a fingertip. It's just all, it's more fingertip ease. So the ultimate goal is fingertip pleasure, right? That's where the world's coming to. And you can just imagine with all the technology, and it's like, it's going to be amazing. But Prabhupada's saying, if you can't control your senses, it doesn't matter what is created, you're not going to be happy. In fact, your senses will drive you crazy. So he goes on to make that point. Materialists are very much advanced in enjoying money and women, yet dissatisfaction prevails, because they cannot be peaceful and happy without Krishna consciousness. As far as material sense gratification is concerned, materialists may go on increasing their enjoyment as far as they can imagine, but because people in such a material condition are servants of the senses, they cannot be satisfied. Hiranyakashipu was a vivid example of this dissatisfied state. Imagine you're drinking something. And the more you drink it, the more thirsty you become. You get this sense that your thirst is being quenched, but the next moment you're more thirsty. So you drink more because you're thirsty. And then you get this sense that your thirst is being quenched, and so you drink more, and it makes you more thirsty. Well, that's material life. You get a sense that your senses are being quenched, and then what happens? Dissatisfaction again arises within you, and you need to do that again, and you need to do more of it. So Prabhupada's saying, if Hiranyakashipu is an example of this, this is very interesting. Okay, like we know in terms of material enjoyment, in terms of power, acquisition, strength, and so on, none of us can compare to Hiranyakashipu. Not even close. Not even a fragment of the power and control and wealth he had. And Hiranyakashipu is not satisfied. Hiranyakashipu wanted to be, well, he thought he was God. He wanted to be God. And unless he could become God, he won't be satisfied. So this means that when we come into the material world, we're trying to be God, and unless we can become God, and we can fulfill that, unless we can fulfill our mission to become God, we can't be satisfied. So of course we know we can't be God. So we all have a mission here trying to be God. And we think, although you may not consciously think like this, but we think, if I can become God, I'll be happy. And so material life is really just an attempt to be God. Acquisition of wealth, power, position, it's all an attempt to be God, with the thinking that the more I become God, the happier I'll be. That's all it is. So, fortunately, at least we understand in theory that we can't be God. You probably know that, right? You can't be God. And I don't advise you trying, because you can't. We are jiva. You know jiva, we're jiva tattva. Jiva means we're an individual unit of consciousness. We're not God. We never were, we never will be. And so I have a suggestion to all of you, and to myself as well, because whoever teaches should always follow their own instructions. I have a little advice. Don't try to be God. Doesn't work. You can't do it. You know, you ever like trying to fix something or do something, it's not working, it's the wrong tool, the wrong size this, that doesn't fit, it's the wrong, you need this, but you only have that and it doesn't work. At some point you realize, I don't have the right tools, I don't have the right equipment, I don't have the right materials to work with, so it's exactly our position. And the sooner we realize that, the better. Now, we've talked about another point before, and I think it's worth discussing. That when we don't understand this, when we don't get it, then Krishna helps us get it. And how does he help us get it? He helps us get it by frustrating us and causing us, in some cases, pain. Even in some cases, unhappiness, even depression. When we are trying to imitate him, trying to enjoy something, and that desire is very strong, and it's a deeply rooted in Nartha, and we can't give it up. So what Krishna will do, he will arrange that every time we try to enjoy that, even sometimes thinking about it, enjoying it, not even doing it, Krishna will cause us to suffer. And in that suffering, Krishna is saying, although we don't hear this, Krishna is saying, don't do this, it doesn't work. And every time you do it, you're going to end up like this. You know, it's like using a tool and you don't know how to use it. And then, because you don't know how to use it, you hurt yourself. And every time you try to use it because you don't know how to use it, you hurt yourself. So it's the same thing. Krishna's saying, don't do this, you're going to hurt yourself. Every time you try to do this, I will make sure you suffer because you have such a strong attachment for this thing. I will make sure you suffer. I will, or leave you in some way empty, or I'll just, this action, the activity you're doing, I'll cause it to just kind of consume you. Your whole day gets ruined by it. You're not productive in your life. I'll cause you some things, or I will cause situations where people will turn against you. People will leave you, they'll become angry with you, whatever it may be. But the point is, I'm just trying to tell you that you're either doing the wrong thing or you're thinking in the wrong way. And every time you do this or think like this, I'm going to create this situation for you just so you know that you should really give it up, that you could never be happy doing this. And that's my mercy. And if I don't do this, maybe you'll never understand that you are not God, you cannot enjoy this. Right? So now think about how interesting this is. What is the strongest material desire, the greatest attachment? It's attachment to the opposite sex. Not necessarily the act of sex, although that's extremely strong, but it's a physical. And sometimes it's there, sometimes it isn't. But the psychological, it's always there. The desire to, in some way, enjoy the opposite sex. Well, that's what Krishna does. And he does a really good job of it. And he doesn't have problems. They don't get frustrated. There's no divorce. As Prabhupada said, no pregnancy, no abortion. It all works, right? And we try to do it, oh my God, it's so difficult. Hello? Anybody paying attention here? I'm not the enjoyer, he is. Krishna doesn't get frustrated. When he's playing with his cowherd friends, when he's dancing with the gopis, when he's playing jokes on the gopis, he's fighting with his friends, killing demons, he doesn't get frustrated. Why doesn't he get frustrated? Because he's God. When we do the same thing, we get frustrated. Why? Because we're not God. If we imitate his position, it doesn't work. So, and someone may, people say, Krishna's an immoral God, he has so many wives, or he dances with other men's wives. Why does he do that? He's doing that to tell you to not do that. Everybody thinks, people misunderstand things. Well, he does it, that means I can do it, because he's God, so he must be showing the example. He is showing the example. He's showing the example that he can do it and you can't. That's the example. people misunderstand. So Krishna's having so many leelas with the gopis, so many intimate, loving exchanges with Radharani every day. He's with Radharani, Radhakund at noon, and then in the evening they go out in the groves of Vrindavan. And it'd be quite amazing to be there, to see it, wouldn't it? Would you like to see what they do? Well, I could guarantee you, and this is ironclad money-back guarantee, if you were in the right state of consciousness and saw those leelas, you would understand that's enjoyment. And you would understand that what you and I are trying to do, that is imitation, and it doesn't work. That is what Prabhupada called perverted reflection. And perverted is a heavy word. If you call someone a pervert, that's pretty nasty. And so Prabhupada is really calling us perverts. He said, because when you're trying to imitate Krishna, you're a pervert. Your actions are perverted reflections of Krishna's. Krishna can do it because he's God. Not only can he do it, that's what he does. He's supposed to do it. That's his nature. He's supposed to love. When we try to imitate that, we don't love, we exploit, and it doesn't work. So people wonder why Krishna's doing these intimate leelas and showing them on this planet, to show us that that's not what we should be doing. And to show us that if we are absorbed in his leelas, then we can actually be happy. So could you imagine being Radha and Krishna there in these amazing leelas, which are under the influence, which are under the influence of Krishna's Swarup Shakti. There's no Maya, no material knows, it's only spiritual energy. And we get to participate in some way, see those pastimes. Do you think if you could enter those leelas, you'd have any ounce of idea that you could actually imitate Krishna? No. I'll give you an example. I have a friend, a devotee, who's an amazing musician. So sometimes when I go to his house, he has a piano, so he'll play something and sing something, some songs that he's writing and like that. But he's so good that when I hear him play and sing, I think, I can't play that well, and I won't even try. And there's no question I can imitate him. It's another level, and I'm not on that level, and even if I took lessons, probably couldn't get to that level. So it's just like that with Krishna. When you understand who Krishna is, then you understand he's on another level, and it's not your level. And don't try to get on that level. So now, how does this all relate to what we're talking about? Because ultimately, the desire to enjoy our senses is coming from a need to imitate Krishna. That's what it is. Now, it seems innocent. Oh, Prabhu, I just want to do this. It's just innocent. It may be innocent, but what's actually going on is that we're imitating Krishna. That's what we're trying to do. Okay, you're innocently trying to imitate Krishna. But Prabhupada is teaching us how to love Krishna, not imitate Krishna. Yes? And Vaidhi Bhakti, following the rules and regulations, it just protects us from imitating Krishna. Listen, get up early in the morning. Don't sleep. You're not the king of the universe. Get off your big, let's say, just sleep what you need. And get up, and now what? Don't watch television, get your beads out. It's just Vaidhi Bhakti, protecting us from acting as if we're God. Okay, chant, read, hear. Otherwise, what do? Everything we do is an imitation of Krishna. Okay, get out of bed, okay. How do I enjoy it? What's the next thing? What do I want to eat? Okay, what do I want to read? What do I want to do now? You see? But although it's innocent, it's actually, we're just enjoying, or we're imitating Krishna's position. So renunciation means no longer am I imitating Krishna's position. That's really what it means. So Yes. Anyway, that's our philosophy. We're trying to imitate Krishna, and so everything other than devotional service is imitating. We're trying to imitate Krishna. Even we're not conscious of it, even if we don't feel that we are. We are. It's just, it's a reality. Because when we're Krishna conscious, we won't have these same desires, the same feelings. All right. So, well, here's a suggestion. Loving Krishna is a lot nicer than imitating him. Number one, because we can't imitate him. Number two, if we try to imitate him, we'll be completely frustrated. And number three, connecting with Krishna is transcendentally blissful. Now, the other thing we have to realize, and that was told by Dhruva Maharaj. He said, Krishna, I was searching after some broken glass. Now I've found you. You are a diamond. So what's this analogy? What's the broken glass? Well, Dhruva wanted a kingdom greater than his father. And that's a pretty amazing desire. That's like huge. And Dhruva is saying that desire is like broken glass. It's completely useless. And you are like a diamond. You are the real thing. Yes? So that realization we're supposed to come to. Krishna is a diamond. My desire is like broken glass. You want some broken glass? Actually, I just broke a bottle. You want me to send it to you? Have any use for it? Of course not. You don't need it. It's like a diamond. I have a diamond mine at my house. Would you like one? Oh yes, send me a diamond. That would be very nice. So Krishna is a diamond. Our efforts to enjoy without Krishna are like broken glass. We have to see that. We have to understand that. Prabhupada's trying to convince us of that. That's, his books are like hammers. You're not the enjoyer, you're not God. You're not the enjoyer, you're not God. You are not the enjoyer, you're not God. You can't enjoy. Knock, 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 knocking our head. You cannot be happy. Knock, knock, knock. You'll never be happy. Knock, knock, knock. Material sense gratification won't make you happy. You've been suffering in the material world for millions of lifetimes. There's no way you'll be happy. Adi bhautik, adi daivik, adi atmik. You'll suffer. Knock, knock, knock. Your mind will drive you crazy. Knock, 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 knock. Relations will come and go. I was just reading, Prabhupada was saying, in family life, the son can't satisfy the father, the husband can't satisfy the wife's never satisfied with the husband, the children never satisfied with the parents never satisfied with the children, the uncles never satisfied with the aunts. And Prabhupada, speaking from his own experience, he said, no matter how hard you work so hard to satisfy them, and they'll never be satisfied. Knocking more and more and more. Prabhupada's trying to knock this all into our head. Why is he trying to knock it into our head? It's just so we could focus on devotional service, because if we don't understand this, then we get distracted. Oh, what happened to so-and-so? I don't know, he went off. What did he go off to do? Become God. He's like, no, we're not Mayavads, we're not trying to become God. Yes, we are. Sense gratification is trying to imitate God. It is. We have to admit that. That's what it is. Just admit it. Admit it, Prabhu. Admit it, Mataji. Sense gratification is trying to imitate God. And so when we stop trying to imitate God, then real bhakti, powerful bhakti can awaken, and we can engage wholeheartedly in the mission of spreading Krishna consciousness. And we can't have a bunch of devotees thinking, yeah, I'll be Krishna conscious, I'll enjoy sense gratification, we'll just work it out, we'll figure it out. That's not the mood of a preacher. And you're going to preach to people that you can't be happy in the material world and you're still trying? It doesn't work. You'll have no Shakti. You'll say it and it won't affect anybody because it doesn't affect you. So Prabhupada is trying in so many ways to help us understand our position. And we're really dull and we're really stubborn. We go, yeah, but I just love this song. I got to play this song for you. Oh, it's my favorite song. I just love it. You know what? And It's so interesting. Like for someone whose senses are purified, the sound of Krishna is just incredibly attractive. It's just like, It doesn't have to be sung nicely. It's just that sound of Krishna's. It's like, oh my God, this sound, this name Krishna is just driving me crazy. Right? And when you're in that state of consciousness, every other sound is just a botheration. It's just like, I don't want to hear it. It's just, even if it's the most beautiful singer, Gandharva, who's singing, "Baby, I love you," you don't want to hear it. It's not attractive. That's a fact. So, one time, Prabhupada, I think he was lecturing on the teachings of Queen Kunti, and he said that you can understand your advancement in Krishna consciousness by your detachment. How detached are you becoming? Because you'll become detached according to how attached you're becoming to Krishna, and you'll understand your advancement by your detachment. So, we just have to ask ourselves the question, how detached are we? How interested are we in sense gratification, in material enjoyment, or on a subtle or gross level? Maybe you're not on the gross level. What about the subtle level? Comforts. Is your whole life about comfort? And you see, the thing is, if we want to be Krishna conscious and go back to Godhead, there's certain things we have to do, and there's certain things we have to eliminate. There's a certain level of detachment that's required, and a certain level of attraction or attachment to Krishna that's required. And it's not going to happen if we don't cultivate it properly. If we don't cultivate a sufficient level of renunciation, and we don't cultivate a sufficient level of service and hearing and chanting, that's not going to happen. And sometimes devotees will experience chanting for 20 years, and they'll say, I still feel I'm very attached. And in many cases it's true, they are. And Bhaktisiddhanta gave that example of the boat. The boat is anchored, and they don't know the boat's anchored, and they're rowing the boat all night, and it doesn't go anywhere. So we see that for many are anchored in material desire, material attachment, and even though they're chanting for so many years, they're not showing signs of strong attachment and strong renunciation. So if renunciation isn't coming and taste isn't coming, we just have to look at our practice, we have to look at our consciousness, we have to look at what are we doing or not doing, what do we need to be doing that we're not doing, what are we doing we need to stop doing, what are we doing that's good that we need to do more of, like that. Because it's supposed to work. It does work. It definitely does work, but you have to apply it properly. Does that make sense? Yeah, if you don't walk your talk, you can't preach, no one will believe you. Okay, I'm just looking if you have any comments. I don't see any, but you can comment because I can read them. I can see all your names. Okay. I can read something more. Ready to read another one? Amazing. Why do computers do weird things? Like you press on the down button and it goes to the beginning. Just to frustrate us, right? So we were talking about hearing the name of Krishna. I want to read something, and I think we read it, maybe we read it a month and a half ago. Every living entity has a tendency to hear pleasing messages. And as such, almost every one of us is inclined to hear news and talks broadcast by the radio stations. But the difficulty is that no one is satisfied at heart by hearing all those messages. You remember this? We read this. Is so nice. The cause of such dissatisfaction is the incompatibility of the message with the innermost stratum of the living soul. This transcendental literature is especially prepared by Srila Vyasadeva to give the utmost satisfaction to the people in general by narration of the activities of the Lord as instructed by Sri Narada Muni to Srila Vyasadeva. In one purport, Prabhupada said that he was talking about radio, and he said radio messages are a nuisance. And you might say, well, I listen to radio, it's not a nuisance. Nuisance, I think Prabhupada said, nuisance sound vibration. But that's how Prabhupada experiences it. So if you have a taste for the nectar of Krishna consciousness, then a lot of things will start to become nuisances because they'll disturb you because they're infested with tamagun and rajagun, and you'll feel it and experience it. I think part of the problem for many of us is if we're in tamagun and rajagun, then when we are surrounding ourselves by tama and rajas, we don't feel it. We don't feel a difference. Whereas if you're on a high level of Krishna consciousness, that you're not going to be attracted to things in tamagun and rajagun. You'll feel the difference. Does that make sense? Nuisance, yeah. No, Prabhupada called the radio, he said, a nuisance sound of sense vibration or sense gratification. So what Prabhupada heard in the news was just materialistic people who want to enjoy by imitating Krishna, talking about other materialistic people who want to enjoy by imitating Krishna, talking about what those materialistic people think, what they do. And it's just, for someone whose consciousness is absorbed in Krishna, it's really a nuisance. And then we could say, if that's true, and of course it is true because Prabhupada said it, and I don't feel it to be a nuisance, then something's wrong with me. Then I need to advance more in Krishna consciousness so I can come to the point when I hear these things and think, this is just, it's just dry nuisance sound vibration. It's doing absolutely nothing for me. And that would be good if you feel that way. Hanoksija, how do we get feedback in a positive way? What? I'm not sure what point you're referring to. I don't understand. How do we get feedback? What was the point I said that you're responding to? I hope she's just going to tell us. But while we're waiting, can I read something else? This is Bhagavatam 7:15-21. All right, we have Krishna Karshani, known in Poland as Krishna Karshani, but it's not Karshani, it's Krishna Karshani, just for the records. Is it sometimes better to overeat with material desires to realize that it's really not working, to avoid fulfilling material desires? Both, well, no. No. Because overeating may not necessarily work. So overeating may actually take you out of Krishna consciousness, or it may take you into the illusion that overeating is good. So it could destroy you by making you think it's good, or it could destroy you by just deviating you from Krishna consciousness. So, satisfying material desires is part of the process of Krishna consciousness, but it's satisfying them in a way that they don't become impediments. And if they don't become impediments, and you satisfy your material desires that way, then you could say, in a broad sense, that's part of the spiritual practice or the spiritual process. It's not really material. And when we say satisfying our material desires, mostly what we're referring to is varna and ashram. I'm an actor, so I need to act. So I'm going into an acting profession. Of course, at the temple, I do plays, but professionally, I'm going to acting. That's my nature. If I don't act, I'll go crazy, I'll beat walls down, I'll scream at people, I might even jump out of a building. I have to act. You know that feeling? Like you just have to do something, it's your nature. But that Krishna consciousness means, okay, engage that nature somehow in Krishna service, or engage that nature, even if you engage it as an occupation, and you use the money you make in Krishna service. So, and then what ashram do you want to be in? Well, when we say, material desire, normally we're saying, I want to get married. Okay, so get married. And get married in a way that you advance in your Krishna consciousness. So then you don't call it really material. And, I wouldn't say I'm fulfilling material desires in that sense. I would say I'm fulfilling my material needs. Material desire, I'm going to Disneyland, I'm going to work. I'm not going to chant my rounds for a week so I could work 2 jobs, collect the money to go to Disneyland. Okay, that's Maya. Pure, unadulterated, and doing that will not help you. And anytime you try to fulfill your material desire, I think it's more than okay. So I think we lost you. So I have to repeat what I was just saying, that you fulfill material desires in a way that's not an impediment to your bhakti, it brings you closer to Krishna, and that's part of the process of devotional service. We come into the world with material desires, everyone has them, so I need to act in a certain way, I need to live in a certain ashram, so let me fulfill those in a way that brings me closer to Krishna, and let me fulfill them in a way that ultimately detaches me from them. But if I try to overdose on them, it may have a bad effect on my consciousness. And overdosing is not a guarantee of detachment. Overdosing can actually take you away from Krishna. This point was brought up to Prabhupada, that you have to enjoy to then become renounced and so forth. And there's some truth to that. But Prabhupada denied that principle, because the person is saying, oh, just go out and enjoy sense gratification, and then you'll become renounced. And Prabhupada said, if that's true, the pigs should become the most self-realized, because Prabhupada said, nobody enjoys sense gratification to the degree the pigs do, in terms of eating and sex and sleeping. They've got the gold medal for that. So Prabhupada said, if material enjoyment will naturally bring material renunciation, then the pigs would all be self-realized. And you probably know the pigs are not all self-realized. In fact, you probably know not even any of the pigs are self-realized. Why not? They should be. So, you have to be careful to understand what material desire means, or what it means to satisfy material desire. It means to get married and be Krishna conscious. That's what it means. It doesn't mean unlimited and unrestricted sense gratification. I'll have unlimited sense gratification, and then as a result, then I'll be renounced. So, check me out in a few months. I'm going to take sannyas. But my preparation for sannyas is I'm going to go out with every girl I meet. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't make sense, because it's nonsense. That's why it doesn't make sense. I think you can understand. Is that good preparation for sannyas? No. Good preparation for sannyas is grihastha life, which is the ashram where you fulfill your material desires in a way that you become renounced. So that's preparation for sannyas. Unrestricted sense gratification is not really the cure. It's dangerous, actually, because if we do it, we can become addicted to it. That's the thing. We'll do it and become addicted. We won't become renounced. So you have to be careful. You think, okay, I'll do this, I'll fulfill my needs, I'll become renounced. You may become addicted to the thing that you're doing that you think is going to cause you to be renounced. So there's a science of fulfilling yourself in a way that brings you closer to Krishna. And some things are not meant to be fulfilled. Some things are sinful. So we can't do them. So now you might say, yeah, but I have this desire. It's not sinful, okay, but does it produce anything for you? Does it help you become Krishna conscious? No, but it's not sinful. Okay, but then you should utilize your time every moment in hearing and chanting. Now you're not. So if you can't use it for Krishna, what is it? Well, it's kind of just fun. I like to do it. It's relaxing. Okay, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half hour, or 8 hours. Well, what did you do today? I was relaxing. Well, what did you do after that? Well, I relaxed all day. No, not like that. Okay, go to the beach today, relax. Okay, that's once a week for a few hours. Not every day, all day. Yes? Let's read one more, because time is up, and we could read one more, it would be nice. O King Yudhisthira, many persons with varied experience, many legal advisors, many learned scholars, and many persons eligible to become presidents of learned assemblies fall down into hellish life because of not being satisfied with their positions. In other words, they want more, they want to achieve more, get a better position. Try more. Purport: for spiritual advancement, one should be materially satisfied. For if one is not materially satisfied, his greed for material development will result in frustration of his spiritual advancement. There are two things that nullify all good qualities. One is poverty. Daridra dosha gunarashi nashi. If one is poverty-stricken, all his good qualities become null and void, because he becomes degraded, because he doesn't have money, becomes a thief or whatever. Similarly, if one becomes too greedy, his good qualifications are lost. Therefore, the adjustment is that one should not be poverty-stricken, but one must try to be fully satisfied with the bare necessities of life and not be greedy. For a devotee to be satisfied with the bare necessities is therefore the best advice for spiritual advancement. Wow. Nice. So, Prabhupada uses the word bare necessities. Bare necessities means don't deny yourself of what you need. Satisfy yourself with what you need, but don't... satisfying yourself with what you need and sense gratification are different. So Prabhupada's making the same point I made. We can discuss this next week. So thank you for listening, and I hope you're all now going to be more focused on Krishna and realize only He can satisfy you. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi.